When Dave Chappelle speaks, the world listens. And this time, he just detonated a truth bomb that's got the entire comedy universe flipping tables. You thought Katt Williams' savage roast of Wanda Smith was just another radio meltdown? Think again, because according to Chappelle, this wasn't just a clapback. It was a full-on comedic assassination, and now we finally know why. This makes the Kardashians look like a church choir. Forget your red table talks and celebrity apologies. This is raw, unfiltered comedy beef, cooked at 1,000 degrees and served on a platter of pettiness and vengeance. Katt didn't just snap, he exploded with the fury of 1,000 canceled sitcoms. And Wanda? She caught every flaming punchline right to the ego. But the twist? Dave says it wasn't random. It wasn't spur of the moment. It was premeditated verbal murder. And the trigger? Something way deeper than anyone imagined. Get ready to unravel the scandal they tried to sweep under the rug. Because when Dave Chappelle spills tea, it ain't lukewarm. It's boiling, bitter, and served with a savage smirk. This isn't just a roast, it's a revelation. And once you hear what really went down, you'll never see that radio station the same again. Before the internet immortalized it with TikTok reenactments and viral reaction videos, the Wanda Smith versus Katt Williams roast was just another chaotic radio interview. But what no one knew, until Dave Chappelle spilled the unfiltered truth, was that this wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. This was Katt Williams on a mission, and Wanda Smith just happened to be standing where the lightning struck. Let's rewind the tape. Atlanta, 2018. A sleepy morning radio segment on V103's Frank and Wanda in the Morning turned into a comedic bloodbath. Katt Williams, fresh off an Emmy win, walks into the studio like a man carrying receipts, resentment, and a couple nuclear punchlines. On the surface, he looked calm. But if you knew Katt, the real Katt, you knew something was bubbling just beneath that velvet voice and thousand-yard stare. Wanda Smith, co-hosting like usual, probably thought she was walking into a lighthearted back and forth. You know, promo talk? A few laughs, some shade, nothing viral. But what she didn't know, Katt came ready to cook. And when Dave Chappelle recently dropped the behind-the-scenes tea, the whole comedy world gasped. According to Dave, Katt's snap wasn't just a he said, she said moment. It was the result of years of silent war, industry shade, and petty sabotage. Chappelle said it plain. Katt doesn't just explode on people. There's always a reason. He's a sniper, not a scatter shooter. So what triggered the snap? Allegedly, Wanda had been throwing slick shade at Katt for months. Not publicly, of course. This wasn't Love and Hip Hop. This was subtle, quiet, passive-aggressive giggles on other radio shows. Little barbs about Katt's behavior. Whisper campaigns about him being unreliable. And worst of all, she allegedly blocked him from getting booked on local comedy shows in Atlanta. Yes, according to sources Dave hinted at, Wanda was playing the gatekeeper game, and Katt had enough. So when he walked into that studio, he wasn't just giving an interview. He was delivering a verbal execution, live and unscripted. What followed next became legendary. The roast. The clapback. The obliteration. Katt went off like a man possessed by every petty spirit in comedy hell. He lit into Wanda's appearance. You big on the radio. You big in real life too? Her cooking. You good at everything but cooking. You make broccoli, now how you burn broccoli. Her parenting. Your children's faces look like they're being punished. The studio fell apart. Laughter, shrieks, even the host. Frank Ski tried to rein it in. But once Katt Williams starts cooking, you're either on the grill or in the pot. Wanda tried to keep up, but it was like bringing a butter knife to a samurai showdown. She threw out lines like, "Your hair looks like a wig," and Katt responded, "It is a wig. That's how wigs work." Instant fatality. It wasn't a back and forth. It was a roast battle that turned into a one-sided execution, and Wanda was on the wrong end of a comedic chainsaw. But here's where it gets dark. After the footage went viral, Wanda's husband reportedly confronted Katt at a comedy event, supposedly pulling a gun on him in the parking lot. No punches thrown, no arrests. Just a murky, half-reported confrontation that only made fans more obsessed. And Dave Chappelle? He saw it all coming. He said on stage with that sly, knowing look, "Y'all think Katt went off for no reason. But some people been poking the bear too long. This wasn't just a radio interview gone wrong. It was karma catching its flight, arriving on time, and collecting every overdue receipt." The comedy world took sides immediately. Charlemagne the God praised Katt for snapping with surgical precision. D.L. Hewley said he'd seen it brewing. And Wanda? She mostly went silent, ducking interviews, stepping away from the mic for a while. Because the internet wasn't kind, memes exploded. Twitter timelines were war zones. One user wrote, "Wanda Smith's mic caught more heat than a frying pan on Thanksgiving." Another said, "Katt didn't roast her. He deep-fried her in soul food grease." And every time the clip resurfaces, which it does, monthly, people rediscover the savage magic of what might be the most vicious radio moment in comedy history. But thanks to Dave, we now understand the layers, the backstory, the why behind the wow, because without that context, Katt just looked angry. With it, he looked calculated, strategic, petty with purpose. And let's be clear, this wasn't about Wanda Smith as a person. This was about the industry snakes hiding behind mics, the fake friends, the backdoor blockers who smile in your face but snitch behind your back. Katt just chose to make Wanda the example. And according to Dave, it was long overdue. So when people say Katt snapped, that's the wrong word. He unleashed. And Wanda, she wasn't ready. The moment Katt Williams walked out of that radio studio, the internet caught fire like somebody dropped a lit match in a fireworks factory. The roast wasn't just viral, it was nuclear. People weren't just replaying it. They were dissecting it, remixing it, worshipping it. The video looped on every timeline like it was the Zapruder film of comedy warfare. And Wanda Smith, she didn't just lose an argument, she got digitally vaporized in 4K. Within hours, Twitter had turned the roast into a religion. Memes exploded like popcorn in a microwave. One viral post showed a picture of Wanda with the caption, "When you realize you showed up to interview Katt Williams, but ended up being the interview." Another had Katt's face edited onto Thanos, snapping his fingers as half of Wanda's dignity faded into dust. TikTok didn't sleep either. Creators reenacted the roast like it was Hamlet. Full skits, wig changes, kitchen sets. They broke it down like forensic analysts. One girl went viral for lip-syncing every insult with Oscar-worthy commitment while pretending to stir broccoli on the stove. It got over 4 million views in 2 days. Yes, Wanda's broccoli had officially become more famous than most SoundCloud rappers, but it didn't stop at the fans. Comedians across the board jumped in like sharks to blood. Kevin Hart, when asked during a promo interview, chuckled and said, "Katt was in rare form." That wasn't a roast. That was an intervention. Mike Epps reposted the video with laughing emojis and the caption, "You don't poke the beast unless you're ready to get bit." Even Tiffany Haddish, who had her own war of words with Katt in the past, couldn't deny the genius. She tweeted, "Y'all better leave that man alone. His jokes come with body bags." And Dave Chappelle, he didn't say much at first, which only made the silence more chilling. But when he finally addressed it during one of his stand-up sets in LA, he pulled no punches. Katt Williams is not crazy. He's a calculated lunatic. That man walked in that radio station like John Wick with a microphone. The audience screamed. And Chappelle, always the puppet master of punchlines, grinned and added, "Y'all didn't see what happened before the cameras rolled." That roast started long before he said a word. Translation? Wanda was already cooked before she opened the fridge. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. What once looked like a spontaneous meltdown started looking more like a perfectly timed detonation. Katt didn't lose control. He took control. And Dave's confirmation added gasoline to the inferno. The radio station, V103, tried damage control, but it was like trying to mop the ocean. They took down the video, issued soft apologies, even tried to move on to other celebrity interviews. But the public wasn't having it. People demanded updates like it was a court trial. Is Wanda okay? Did Katt get banned? Where's the Netflix special? And then came the remix wave. Someone took the audio from the roast and edited it into a Street Fighter battle. Another turned it into a Broadway musical trailer. There was even an edit where Katt's insults were timed to an orchestra, complete with violins crashing every time Wanda took another L. Meanwhile, Wanda Smith's social media became a ghost town. She stopped posting. Comments flooded her pages with broccoli jokes, fire emojis, and phrases like, "Katt sent you to comedy rehab." Even her fans begged her to clap back. But how do you recover from a roast so brutal it gets played at comedy writing workshops as a case study in demolition? To make matters worse, the internet crowned the roast with nicknames: the Breakfast Burn, Broccoli Gate, the Wanda Wreckage, and, thanks to Dave's metaphor, John Wick Chapter Katt. It wasn't just comedy anymore, it was canon. It wasn't just comedy anymore, it was canon. The cultural weight of the roast reached absurd heights. Think piece articles popped up. Academics started breaking down the psychology of public humiliation. Twitter threads analyzed the power dynamics of comedians versus radio hosts. Even Charlemagne the God weighed in on The Breakfast Club, calling the moment one of the most perfectly executed character assassinations I've ever seen. And yet, the biggest twist was how the world started to retroactively reassess Katt Williams. Before this, he was seen as chaotic, brilliant but unstable, too real for Hollywood, too raw for mainstream, but now he looked like a man with a plan, a misunderstood genius who didn't self-destruct. He targeted, calculated, executed. Dave Chappelle's later interviews confirmed it. People think Katt just lashes out. Nah, that roast, that was a chess move. Every joke had coordinates, and it all started making sense. The wig jokes, the broccoli punchlines, the jabs at parenting. It wasn't just off the cuff, it was personal theater, and Wanda was an unwilling co-star. This wasn't a beef. It was a one-man roast special disguised as an ambush. The shockwaves continued into the comedy world. Club promoters started rebooking Katt like he was the second coming. Netflix gave him another special. Late-night hosts suddenly remembered he existed, and comedians who once stayed silent started whispering, maybe Katt was right about the industry after all. Meanwhile, Wanda Smith returned to the mic weeks later. Quieter, measured, a little more careful. She addressed the situation vaguely, saying she had moved on and wasn't looking back. But the internet wasn't done. Every time she posted, a new generation of fans rediscovered the clip and reignited the fire. Because that's the thing about viral moments, they don't die. They loop, they evolve, they haunt. And with Chappelle confirming the backstory, the mystery was gone. This wasn't random. It was calculated revenge, delivered with a comedic machete and wrapped in a silk voice. Katt didn't lose his cool. He sharpened it, and Wanda, she wasn't just roasted. She was entered into the Hall of Flame, courtesy of a man the world had written off too soon. Time passed. The memes slowed. The hashtags faded. TikTok moved on to its next victim. But make no mistake, the Wanda Smith roast wasn't forgotten. It became something bigger than a trending moment. It turned into comedy folklore, whispered about in green rooms, referenced in stand-up specials, and used in YouTube thumbnails like an ancient relic of digital savagery. And Wanda? Her name became synonymous with what not to do when interviewing Katt Williams. It didn't matter how many new shows she hosted or how many celebrity interviews she booked afterward. That moment was burned into the internet's collective memory like a tattoo done with a flamethrower. People didn't say Wanda Smith. They said, you know, the lady Katt destroyed. Every time someone tried to move on, another remix video would resurface. Another reaction channel would drop a breakdown. Another stand-up comic would reference the roast as a cautionary tale. The moment refused to die. Because it wasn't just a funny clip. It was a public reckoning. And it changed how comedians move. After Chappelle pulled back the curtain and showed everyone that this wasn't an outburst, it was a setup, comedians started rethinking everything. Interviews weren't just promo stops anymore. They were battlegrounds, ambush zones, traps. You walk into a studio laughing and you leave a trending topic, a walking meme, a burned career. Katt Williams shifted the balance of power that day. He reminded people that behind the laughs is a mind sharper than any TMZ headline. That roast wasn't just about Wanda. It was about every radio host who ever mocked him, every club owner who blackballed him, every Hollywood exec who laughed behind his back. That 10-minute verbal demolition was Katt Williams' revenge tour, and it happened live on air. But let's talk reputations. Wanda Smith didn't just take an L, she took a full alphabet. Her brand of radio banter couldn't survive in a world that now expected authenticity, sharp wit, and bulletproof confidence. The roast exposed not just her underestimation of Katt, it exposed the cracks in how media handles real ones. Katt came with fire and she brought a water pistol. It wasn't just embarrassing, it was educational. Meanwhile, Katt's legend grew, and not just among fans. Among comedians, he became something else entirely. A folklore figure, a cautionary tale. A hero for every stand-up who's ever been treated like a joke by gatekeepers who couldn't hold a mic to them. His next comedy specials hit harder. His interviews were watched with fear. Hosts hesitated before trying to get slick, because now Katt Williams wasn't just funny, he was dangerous. And Dave Chappelle? His commentary on the situation didn't just confirm what fans suspected, it validated Katt in the eyes of the comedy elite. Chappelle doesn't co-sign clowns. When he said Katt doesn't snap for nothing, he's a sniper! It hit like scripture. Suddenly, every Katt's unstable narrative started to crumble. Maybe he wasn't crazy. Maybe he was just tired of the games. And when you put that much pressure on a man that sharp, you don't get chaos. You get combustion. The public's view of Katt evolved. Once labeled erratic, now praised as unfiltered. Once seen as problematic, now understood as prophetic. Because let's be honest, he didn't lie. He didn't fabricate. He didn't even exaggerate. He just said what everyone else was too afraid to say. And said it with the comedic precision of a surgeon on a sugar rush. And that's why the moment stayed alive. Not just because it was hilarious, not just because it was mean, but because it was true. Painfully, hilariously, brutally true. And in a world addicted to fake smiles and staged interviews, that kind of truth is radioactive. But there's more. Because what Dave Chappelle revealed, what made this moment go from iconic to historic, was the strategy. The intent. The fact that Katt Williams walked into that room knowing he might burn the whole thing down and doing it anyway. That's not a meltdown. That's a message. And the message was clear. Don't play with me. That's why the aftermath didn't just fall on Wanda. It hit the entire radio industry. Suddenly, morning shows stopped poking guests. Interviewers dropped the fake shade. That petty energy? Gone because nobody wanted to be the next roast victim. Katt had set a precedent. Disrespected comedians might not go quietly. Even fans changed. Viewers started rooting for the underdog again. Katt's following grew. People who once called him washed or toxic now saw him as a prophet in a gold chain and perm. He wasn't canceled. He was crowned. But here's the kicker. It's not over. Because what Dave said hinted at something deeper. That this wasn't the only incident. That Katt had a list. That roast was just one name crossed off. And if that's true, if Katt's holding grudges with punchlines ready, then the comedy world better buckle up. Because if Wanda got scorched over passive shade, imagine what happens when he aims at someone really powerful. Dave Chappelle knows. He didn't just speak on it to entertain. He spoke on it to warn, because Katt Williams is no longer a misunderstood genius. He's a loaded weapon. And next time someone thinks they're clever enough to take shots, they might just find themselves as the headline of the next roast heard round the world. The Wanda Smith meltdown was a lesson. For interviewers, don't poke what you can't handle. For comedians, keep your bars sharp and your enemies sharper. And for fans, never assume you know the full story until Chappelle confirms it. Because in this business, every scandal has a setup and every roast has a reason. And as long as Katt Williams is still breathing, you better believe there's more to come. And there it is, if the roast heard round the world, finally decoded, dissected, and dragged into the spotlight thanks to none other than Dave Chappelle. You thought Katt Williams just snapped for clout? Nah, this was a precision strike. Years in the making, aimed straight at the shade. Machine, and Wanda Smith was just the unlucky soul who caught the first wave. Now the only thing burning hotter than that broccoli joke is the comment section that you're about to light up. So go ahead. Sound off. Was Katt right to unload on Wanda? Did Dave just confirm the greatest roast in comedy history? Or is there more tea still brewing behind the scenes? Smash that like button like Katt smashed that radio interview. Slap the subscribe button like it owes you child support. And punch the notification bell like it's whispering slick comments in a radio studio. Because this is Scandal Spark, where no feud is too petty, no mic is too hot, and no ego is safe. We don't just spill the tea. We dump the whole boiling pot straight into the drama. And trust us, if you thought this roast was the final chapter, you haven't seen anything yet. The next meltdown is already loading, the next secret is already leaking, and the next celebrity is already shaking under the pressure. This isn't news. This is entertainment warfare. And we're here for every messy, memeable, microphone-melting second of it. Welcome to Scandal Spark. We expose it, we exaggerate it, we make it viral. We make it viral.